This is the Expanding Boundaries podcast.
Do you feel trapped? Stuck in a world of mediocrity, constrained by bad habits, limiting beliefs, and feeling unfulfilled? Do you feel that deep down you know you were destined for much more? In Expanding Boundaries, you'll discover how you can break free and step into your real life, a life without limits. And now, here's your host, Michael McLeish.
Hello again. Welcome back to the Expanding Boundaries podcast. And before we get started here, I just wanted to, again, thank you for tuning in and listening. If you're newer to the show, go back and review some of the older episodes. And if this is your first, well, we are glad to have you here. One ask I do have when we get started here, if you find any value from today's show, please take a little bit of time and give me a 5-star review on iTunes. That would help me a lot, and it would also help the algorithm to share the show with other people that might be looking to expand their boundaries. So with that said, I am excited to get going here with our guest. I've known him for several years now, and I'll give you a quick introduction here. He is a seasoned real estate investor and educator. He's got over 2 decades of experience in the industry. He has a diverse background with various aspects of real estate, including short sales and buying and flipping and holding, and even more recently into the boutique senior living space. All right. In 2018, he entered the education space as well and was a founding member of one of the largest education companies in the United States. Over the past 10 years, his focus has shifted into the science of human behavior and peak performance, and has been working to understand how to produce maximum results and help individuals as well as organizations reach their full potential. And I think that's how we got to know each other in that world a little bit. Just as another thing that's really cool is in, I guess, about 10 years ago, 2012, he opened a gym called The Cage, which is a lifestyle fitness center with a heart and culture rooted in martial arts. Today, he is focused on working with entrepreneurs and teams using a variety of programs and training modalities to help them reach peak performance. His passion is for connecting the dots for people between where they are currently and discovering what they are truly capable of achieving. I know him as a mentor and a good friend. Patrick Precourt, welcome to the show.
Oh, welcome. I was listening to that. I'm like, I want to get to know this guy. Well, thank you very much for that intro, Mike. And it's funny because you and I have actually known each other for quite a bit now, haven't we?
Yeah, quite a while. I think since 2015, 2016.
Yeah, something like that. Pretty amazing. Yeah.
Quite a journey. Well, cool. So, Pat, where in the world are you located right now?
Located in a little town called Cromwell. When I say little, it's about, 10,000 people in the state of Connecticut, up in the Northeast on the East Coast here.
Nice. Okay. Well, I know you like to travel. I know you like to, in the summertime especially, get in your boat and do a lot of touring around the area. That said, what's one place in the world that you feel like you must visit sometime in your lifetime?
Alaska. Haven't been there yet. It's on my absolute to-do. And of course, visiting Alaska, that's like saying you're going to visit the U.S. because Alaska is so diverse, right? And seasonally it changes so much. But I want to see it in both the winter and the summer in different parts of Alaska. And I want to see it by land and by water and by train. It's 3 different ways you can fully experience and embrace it. So it's something that probably within the next 18 months, we'll start that journey. It'll take multiple visits to experience it the way we want to.
That sounds incredible. So why is that one on your bucket list as such an important one?
And this could just be the way I see it, Mike, but it seems like one of the few places left that are still authentic and genuine and unscathed by a lot that we see going on in the world, So, and I'm big on just getting back to kind of like the originality of things. The outdoors aspect of it is crazy appealing to me, as I know it is to you, and as much as I thrive on people, my recovery is being away from people, so two sides of the pendulum. And as far as the pendulum swings to one side, being that I love being around people, I love serving people, I grow from being around people, I need the exact opposite. I need nobody. when I say nobody, my wife, yes, and family, but I need away from that. So putting all that kind of stuff together is just ideal.
That sounds amazing.
The last great outdoors.
Yeah. And you mentioned all the different seasons there. How long of an experience would you be planning?
It'd probably be a couple weeks at a clip. I think much shorter than a couple weeks. You can't lean into, you know how it is when you go on a vacation, so to speak, right? All the work leading up to it. By the time you get there, it takes a bunch of days just to unwind, to finally embrace where you're at. And then you got to pack up and go home. Right? So, knowing that, I think 2 weeks is a good one. It gives you will get to a place where you've let go of where you just came from. And that's the idea.
Yeah, I have definitely done that wrong so many times where I would travel, especially overseas, and you want to just see everything and do everything. It's very American, I suppose, microwave behavior. And where you're making a mistake is just like you said, you're just almost getting comfortable and it's time to pack up and go. And you don't really get to immerse in the culture and the way that things are there. So
100%.
That's great. All right. Well, let's dive in here a little bit deeper. I know I gave you the audience here an intro, but can you give us a little bit more background, I guess, from the beginning? How did you, or where did you start in life, and how did you get into the real estate space?
Yeah, so I'll do this really quick because at 55 years old, that's a long runway, So I'm athlete by trade, if you will. Spent a good part of my first half of my adult life playing rugby. In the last few years, I got to play professional rugby. Traveled the world for 6 years, which was really, really cool. But a lot happened in that time. The part of rugby that's so significant in my life is the introduction to genuine leadership, as I was put in a leadership position many times and captained a team for many years. In my professional life, went from everything from owning a framing company and building new homes to working in a family home inspection business because my body got busted up in rugby a bit. I had to take a break from being on the field. So I got into home inspections, and from there getting into the real estate investment space. And that's in the late 90s. And that's, I started in with no money to invest in the lease option side of the business. And by early 2000s, we were doing short sales. By mid 2000s, we're in the education space of teaching others how to do short sales because we're doing so many of them so fast and no one knew what they were at this period of time. Banks didn't even know what they were. They didn't have loss mitigation departments. There's no such thing. There wasn't a process, right? So we're kind of blazing trails there as we went along. We're not the only ones, of course, doing it. Others were doing it off on their own as well, Later in that year, another real estate investment company, they got HGTV show Flip This House and asked us if we wanted to get involved in a coaching program with them. They didn't have anything to sell, and we already had a coaching program. So we founded a nationwide coaching program in real estate investment at that point. So it's like 2006, 2007, and they're great marketers and great in sales, and that grew to be one of the largest ones in the country really, really quick, So that evolved. I'll fast forward here a little. That evolved then into me studying deeper why some people succeed in education, why some don't, Mike. And they're given the same education. It's very good education. I'm not just saying that. It was outstanding, as a matter of fact, but still very few people succeeded with it. And I started a deep study into the understanding behavior and what makes humans do what they do. Now, this crossed over with I'll just call it a study of the brain that I had already been engaged in as a result of a series of bad concussions in rugby that had left me in a memory deficit and even bouts of amnesia, and not accepting that scared me, quite frankly. So I spent time understanding how I can heal my brain, and from everything from diet to stress management to brain exercise. No different than when you go to the gym and you want to build your biceps. You pick up some dumbbells and curl. You can do very similar exercises for your brain. Your mind can heal your brain, just like your mind can heal other parts of your body. It's a very, very interesting thing in the whole neuroscience space and understanding the neuroplasticity of the brain. But that started to overlap with behavior and the behavior work I was already doing on the other side of the equation, trying to figure out why people do or don't, right? And both of those, and we don't pick our paths, Mike, and you know this, right? The journey reveals the path. We don't pick it, and that pushed me out of real estate education as a focus and into the human behavior place, and more specifically, how to control human behavior so that we can get, specifically strategically get the results we want. So peak performance. Now, you mentioned back in 2012, we opened a gym. It's called The Cage. I call it a lifestyle fitness center with the heart and culture of our martial arts. So we do everything from Muay Thai, Jiu-Jitsu, wrestling, and of course, MMA cage fighting. And but on the other side, we do yoga and Pilates and spinning and our version of cardio kickboxing. It's all that kind of stuff, right? And the gym, by default, again, I didn't open it for this reason, but it became literally a human laboratory for helping people achieve the results they want in their health and fitness goals and agendas, right? And that one space, health and fitness, fat loss, whatever you want to call it, right, there's probably no industry that fails at a higher rate than that, right? When you take into context all the books and products and supplements and gym memberships that are sold, at home equipment, when you look, most of that stuff just does not work out. And again, the answer to the question, Mike, right there, why doesn't it, is exactly the same answers to why don't more people succeed when they're given the same amount of information, knowledge, expertise, right? And here's an interesting takeaway, right? What they all have in common is they all want the result. They know how to get the result. They deeply desire the result, but they can't get themselves to execute the behavior to produce the result. What gives? And that's why you mentioned in the intro, my expertise has whittled down to creating that bridge between where we are and what we're capable of becoming. That's the place that I play in now, right? So you can't tell someone that up front because that's not what they want. They just want the result. So we have to speak in terms of results, right, and what they want, but give them what they need. And there's some dots to be connected in between there. So that's the long and the short to the runway there.
All right. Well, you covered about a half a dozen of the questions I was going to ask you there. So great job. All right. So I guess just the last part that you said there, you said everybody knows what they want. They know the result they want. They have the knowledge to do it. They have the desire, the burning desire to achieve these things, but it's the behavior part of that. Is that something you can unpack in just 5 minutes? Like what's missing there as far as the behavior and getting people to turn that around?
Yeah. So let's everybody talks about, COVID as a pandemic. The real pandemic is mediocrity in life, right? We accept mediocrity as an acceptable norm, and then we're comfortable with everybody else around us accepting mediocrity. Mediocrity is sitting back in your comfort zone and not pushing your limits, not becoming the person you're capable of becoming. Okay. So let's start there. So I'm an antidote to mediocrity. Now, deep down inside, we all want more, but here's the thing. We often get so challenged that the desire for more gets overwhelmed by our the perception of what it's going to take to get more. So let me set this up in a neat little metaphor for you, right? So picture a scale, like the traditional scale, with the part on the left and the part on the right, and it almost looks like a pendulum, sort of, right? And it sits at that, right? On the left, you have the pain of staying the same. And on the right, you have the perceived pain of change. Now, when the pain of staying the same finally exceeds the perceived pain of change, we will take action. We will move without exception. So now, say, all right, how do we manipulate the scale? And the better question we first have to ask is, how are we already manipulating the scale? When I say the word pain, right, most people have a negative connotation to pain. So we're told to avoid it, distract from it, run from it, anesthetize it if it shows up, right? When in fact, pain is nature's greatest source of guidance. There's no better intel, wisdom, insight than the exact information, instructions we get from the universe upon receiving pain. But instead of doing what we should do, which is shut up, stop what we're doing and listen, instead we run, we cover our ears, we make the pain go away. We get home, we drink more drinks, right, to anesthetize the discomfort. And that's when we should be paying attention. right? Now watch how it plays on the scale, right? That pain, if we leaned into it, and that's really what we should be doing, Mike, not stepping back, leaning towards it, it would load up that scale. It would get heavy. But instead, we distract from it. We run from it. We anesthetize it. So it lightens up the pain side of the pain is staying the same. And at the exact same time, on the other side of the scale, the perceived pain of change to work, we always make change. When I say change, the default position is change goes from good to worse, not from good to better, good to worse. So change now is going to have some pain involved, some discomfort. We make the change harder than it really is. And we run through our head the risk, the fear of failure, loss, judgment, the unknown, right? So we start loading up the scale of the perceived pain of change while we're lightening the scale of staying the same. We're stuck. We're screwing ourselves. There's nothing we can do about it. We can't study our way out of it. We can't motivate our way out of it. We can't podcast our way out of it. Nothing. We're stuck. We have to appreciate that this is just how humans work. And if you're a listener right now, don't ever forget this. Human behavior is ruthlessly predictable. It's not some unknown. Doesn't lie in some gray space. This is one tool that you can intentionally manipulate, and you will change your behavior. So that just starts the process, Mike.
That is fascinating. So left to our own devices, what I'm hearing you say is we will artificially minimize the problem, minimize the pain of whatever that situation is of doing the same thing, and maximize artificially the pain of making those positive changes that we need to go where we want to go.
100%. 100%. And you've heard, some people are, man, people don't change till they hit rock bottom. Well, that is true. A lot of people will not change till they hit rock bottom because they let the process play out. You can only drink your pain away for so long until you run out of getting away from it.
It's going to minimizing it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's going to come to an end. And what I'm saying is we don't have to wait for that catastrophic moment, Mike, to show up in our lives, right? Mm-hmm. We can actually intelligently and strategically say, no, I'm going to lean into my discomfort, meaning I'm going to accept my life for what it is, no better and no worse, but I'm going to accept it for what it is. And then I'm going to evaluate the future. I'm going to stop playing out a scenario that is made up in my mind, meaning this future failure, loss, judgment, whatever, and start playing out a future that I want to see, one that's possible, and watch how the scales start to change. We start realizing, you know what? This staying the same crap is not that great. And then you start playing further games with yourself. Say, what if, and Mike, this is a game I do with myself all the time when I find myself procrastinating or just avoiding maybe responsibilities. I do this all the time. I say, Pat, what if you keep up this BS behavior right now and nothing changes for the next year? Now we're in February 2024. How are you going to feel if you're in the same damn spot? And that never feels good. But that's what leaning into the pain is all about. Let's get real with this stuff and stop running from it and hiding from it. And for people who are busy, I just got to throw this in here because this is where we get a little lost sometimes. Like, no, man, I'm working hard. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm so busy every day. You're busy distracting yourself from what you should be paying attention to. We use work oftentimes to distract away from the real pain, our real truth. And we justify it like, but I'm doing all this work. Bullshit. You're running from your truth. And sometimes I share with clients all the time, you'll get this, I know, that nothing changes until we get to our truth. If we keep playing a game and making up a story that ain't real, nothing in our lives will ever change. It's like you going, hey, Pat, can you give me specific directions to help me get from Cromwell, Connecticut to Breckenridge, Colorado? I say, yeah, Mike, I could do that. No problem. That's an easy map. And I send you this map. And then you start down that map and you're like, well, Pat, this map ain't working for me. I'm already lost and I haven't even gotten going. Oh, where are you, Mike? And you're like, well, I'm sitting in Dallas, Texas. Like, well, Mike, you lied to me where you were. You weren't in Cromwell. You're in Dallas. No doubt that won't work for you. That's how life works, right? One thing that works great for you, Mike, may not work well for me because my current situation is different. And we all have to get to that spot. What is, without judgment, just very objectively, what is my current situation? Because whatever it is, you can make it better. So it doesn't matter what it is. Does that all make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. That's so good. So no sense in following the instructions of turn left here, turn right here, if you're in the wrong origin in the first place, right?
No,
So
they won't apply. You won't even recognize them. They'll be
Right.
so confusing. They'll have no application. And
Right.
somebody else over here saying, "Well, I cracked the code. I got it done for you. Just follow me, what I did." But I'm not you.
Yeah.
You see, there's practices and there's principles. Okay, principles are rock solid. They don't change. They're not relative to circumstances, right? Like gravity, as an example. And then there's practices which are applied to time. They're applied to location. They're applied to individuality. Like their circumstances affect those principles. Like in our world of real estate marketing, right? You may have a great campaign that works maybe in your land business up in your area of Colorado, and I try to run that land campaign in Connecticut. People are just, I don't get a single call. I'm talking to a different person who thinks a little differently, and we're in a different type of real estate. So that's a practice. That's not a principle. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep.
I
100%.
work in principles. I don't work in practices. I work in the fundamentals that all humans are driven by.
Yep. It just removes all the things that are variables that can, thwart your efforts. You get bound down to the basic truths that you can start and operate from immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right.
100%.
Well, you had mentioned, going back to your rugby days, that you were in a leadership position. You mentioned genuine leadership even, and you were, team captain. And when we talked yesterday, you had said to me that one of the biggest challenges and greatest needs in our society today and the future going forward is leadership. The demand and need for leadership has never been greater. So can you tell me a little bit more about that? What were your thoughts there?
So just for context, right? And I got to share this. I grew up a lot. I played, competitive rugby for 15 or 16 years. So I matured a lot in that time. I'm just being honest with you. One of my first roles as captain was on a men's club, and I was one of the young guys on the team, but I was what you would call an impact player, meaning that I changed the level of play when I was on a field, not because I was the best player, but because the amount of energy that I played with. Okay. And you can change an entire game that way. Long story short, the team had always been a top team in the nation, and they had a couple low seasons. And they were doing a changing of the guards. They put this young guy with a lot of energy with average rugby skills as captain. Now, here's an interesting point, Mike. I brought the team right back up. Okay. And we were right back on the top again within 3 seasons. And we kept now we're going 16-1, 15-2. We're having great seasons. Okay. Challenges, I was not a good leader. And I want everybody to see the difference here. Okay. I was measuring by one metrics, our end result. We were winning. Now, 4 or 5 years into that captainship, in that time, I stripped everything out in our hierarchy. I got rid of our vice captain. I got rid of what was called our select committee. Our select committee was your group of elders that sat above your team that selected who would play each week. Because in rugby, you have a starting team with no substitutes. That's how it works, right? But my ego got out in front of me, and my anchor was, I'm winning. Shut up. I'm producing results. And unfortunately, we didn't have anybody in the organization that could whack me around a little and punch a little wisdom into my brain. I was simply, we're winning, so what I'm doing works, and everybody wants to win. So and nobody could really come up with an argument against that up and until, and this took some looking back and undoing to understand. I got called up to play at a higher level game, so I left my team and started playing on our regional team. That's where we got to play internationally. And the very next season, our team with the same players collapsed, fell apart. And I would say this is where I learned about leadership. It's not because at first my ego said, wow, Pat, you're that great. You matter that much. One guy on a team of 15 and whole team falls apart. That's just ego talking. Okay.
Right.
What I learned after is as I started studying leadership and successful leadership and so forth, is that my leadership was actually a failure, Mike, because I failed in creating leaders, which is a leader's number one role, is to develop others around them, to create environments for those who they lead to succeed. And a leader's success of measurement is measured in the success of those that they lead. And here I left, and because I'd stripped away any hierarchy of leadership, the team just wallowed, even though they're still a great team of athletes. So I learned really quickly that I failed as a leader. And that hurt me because I genuinely have a love for this team. This is my team,
Right.
And I let them down. I was given this great honor, and I failed them on a bigger picture, So then I said, well, bring that into real life and what we're lacking. Well, we're lacking leaders who understand this concept of leadership, that leadership is not about me or me getting accolades or me being the one up in the front of the room screaming loud. It's about me creating an army of leaders for them to go out and lead, and them ultimately starting to create more leaders, and leaders being focused on creating success for those that they lead. So when you think about this, even if it was in the form of a pyramid, everybody would be involved and invested in helping those they lead succeed. This is how we win. Whether it be in a business organization, within your family, it could be in a team like a rugby team, it could be an entire nation. If everybody's focused on a handout, pulling the next person up, and knowing that my victory comes when I see you succeed, right? That changes everything, Mike. And that's not driven from ego. That's driven from servitude. And that was probably the single biggest lesson that I learned in leading our team. I turned it into a narcissistic lead, a dictatorship. And that we know is not a good way to lead.
No, no, it's not. Do you feel like that leadership quality or trait, is that something natural? Is that something someone has to learn, or where does that come from?
Yeah, I think some people have a propensity and an innateness to become good leaders, but leadership it's a developed skill like anything else. And it's something that it starts with self-leadership. So I'll walk you through kind of how I see the stages. And this is leading us first. And it's hard to get people to lean into you as a leader. Those who follow leaders, or those you lead, are committed to you for two reasons: safety and security, right? And knowing that good things will follow. Okay. That's why people will commit to a leader. That requires a level of trust. Now, when you are incapable of leading yourself, meaning you don't make the right decisions for you, you're inconsistent in your behavior, in your decisions, in your emotional outbreaks, people don't have that trust in you, and they're unwilling to lean into you. Say, all right, man, I'm all in with you, right? So that breaches that ability. So it all starts with our ability to lead ourselves. From that, then it goes from leading others. And this is a complete position of servitude, serving others, which is the best way to say it. Like if I use the metaphor of a ship on the sea, when it's clear sailing and the waters are flat and calm, the captain is down in the study, the first mate, the crew are up on the bridge, and they're getting the accolades for such a great trip. But when the seas get rough and stormy, and an engine goes out and a fire starts on the bridge and all that other kind of stuff, that's where the captain's front and center. He's the one taking the brunt of it. And if things don't go right, he'll take full responsibility for it. Okay. Captains should only be seen, right, in those tough times. But when they come across, say, the finish line, because it was a race and they come in first, that's where the entire crew is out in front with their hands raised, high-fiving each other. Good job. And the captain's getting his reward knowing that his team won. That's the difference. Okay. And that, when I talk about leadership, that's what I'm talking about. Right? Not the kind of guy like, oh, look at me, how great I am, even though I had this crew of 50 doing all the work behind me. And it requires, Mike, and this is, I mean, you and I are alpha males who have an ego, right? So we can relate to this. It requires we park that ego and put that secondary, at least tame it. It's not like ego gets a bad rap, and ego is like our self-identity. It's who we are. So it's not wrong. It's wrong if we let the bad part of our ego make decisions for us, right? So we got to hone that in. So it starts with self-leadership, and then it goes on to leading others, and then it goes on to teaching others to be teachers, which is the evolution of creating more leaders, right? And that's how you kind of keep a forever perpetual model going. Everybody's got to understand their job is to help up the next person.
That is powerful, powerful stuff. So thank you for sharing your thoughts on leadership there. You also had mentioned to me yesterday that you're working on a new special project that sounds really exciting called the Maverick Code. Is that right?
Yeah, Maverick Code's a piece of the bigger project. Yeah. Pretty awesome.
Yeah. Can you tell our audience more about that and maybe the bigger project?
Yeah, so the Maverick Code is a type of behavior, right? So if one were to do a little research on like the Maverick personality, it's a unique personality. It has its challenges like all personalities do, but at the same time, it has a certain gutsiness to it, a willingness to, if they got to be the one that goes first and gets bloodied up doing it and know that they'll get ridiculed along the way, they're willing to do it. They understand the principle of putting character out in front of reputation, which a lot struggle with, Mike. You say, well, what's character? Characters, man. Character's just doing what you say you do. That's all. If you say you stand for this, then stand for that. And not caring what others think of you while you do it, right? And when you look at reputation is just a popularity contest. Everyone's like, reputation is number one. It counts the most. Bullshit. Character counts first. And guess what, Mike? When you stand on who you are, you're not gonna be exciting to everybody. You're gonna turn some people off, right? Your reputation might get a little tarnished, so to speak. But again, if you're more concerned with popularity contests, then go the way of the politician, go the way of Hollywood. But that's not what leadership is. We bring this back. Leadership is getting people to trust you. And they're not going to trust you if you say what you think other people want to hear. Mm-hmm. They're going to trust you if you put a flag in the ground saying, this is what I represent, and watch, because my life is a replication of what I say. And will everybody follow you? Of course not. But you don't want everybody either.
Right. So
right?
True. Yes.
So I forget what the question was, but that's where the answer was.
Yeah, you were talking about the bigger project that you're working on and the Maverick Code fitting into that.
Sorry. Yeah, so the bigger project, quite frankly, is it leads up to a live event. It has a 90-day runway to it, but it leads up to a live event. Live event is small. It's 15 people at a time. It's on a private off-grid island, and it's a 3-day opportunity, experiential opportunity for people to get exposed to environments that we can't normally get exposed to in a real life, and challenge ourselves physically, mentally, and emotionally to our limits, and then require us to operate within those expanded limits, if you will. So this is one of my partners is a U.S. vet. He's 4 years as a Marine, and then he went to University of Connecticut with me. That's where I met him. We played rugby for a bunch of years together. Then he went on to be a 26-year veteran in the Navy SEALs. Amazing human being, and I have been friends 30 plus years and are really, really good buddies. And we lean into each other a lot because of, a different set of goggles, Mike, that we've experienced the world through and see the world through, right? But he brings a lot of his wisdom and knowledge and expertise to this island project. And the Navy SEALs are really, really good at getting people into extraordinary environments and then training them to operate also in an extraordinary capacity. Does that make sense when I say that? So it's going to be what I believe in a phenomenally unique experience that we will be able to leapfrog where we are in this world. In everyday life, we can't push ourselves to those limits because it can get very dangerous. And if it's not done in the right way, it could lead to bad things, right?
Right.
Yeah. So that's in short what this is about.
Okay. When does this roll out? When is that? When are you going to start taking people in there? And
first event will be in April. We're finalizing the dates. And if anybody just follows me in any of the social media channels, or you'll see announcements and us talk more about it. The second one is actually your neck of the woods. It'll be in Colorado in June.
Oh.
Yeah, we're coming up into the mountains. Cotopaxi.
Oh, very cool. I remember when you came out here.
We talked about this before.
Yeah, now it's all coming together. Got it.
Yeah.
Very cool. All right. Well, Patrick, with that, how can people connect with you or find you online?
So real easy to find, in Instagram or social or, Facebook at just Patrick Precourt. If you put that name in, you'll find me or my son, and you'll be able to figure out the difference between the two. Our home website is just my name, patrickprecourt.com. And if anybody's interested in finding out any more information or just want to tag along, by all means, I'll follow any one of these sites or feel free to DM me if you have any questions or interested in anything that we're doing.
Okay, perfect. I will be sure to put your contact information in the show notes as well. So if anybody's listening to this, they can just go through the show notes and click and find you immediately.
That's awesome. That's much appreciated and honored to be on here with you, Mike. Genuinely, am, brother.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. I've been wanting to, you were one of the first people that came to mind when I put this show together. And I'm glad that we're able to finally get one recorded together.
Yeah, no doubt. Awesome, brother.
All right. Well, Patrick, thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time. And if for those of you who are listening, there was so much content, so much good stuff in today's show. Rewind, pick out a little part that you want to play over and again, and think about one big idea, and then think of a smaller action, something that you can take and put into practice immediately today to expand your boundaries. I highly encourage everybody to do that. And again, for those that you were listening, if you did provide some value, please share this episode with at least one friend that could also be helped. And again, thank you for being here today. Thanks for listening, and we will see you on the next episode.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.